Hello and welcome to another video from Toy Polloi. Now I've been set a challenge by my friends over at Toy Galaxy. If you haven't checked out their YouTube channel, do, because it's an excellent channel and they do some fantastic toy reviews. Dan from Toy Galaxy got in touch with me a while back saying that he'd been given some old vintage Star Wars figures that had been stored with their weapons tied to the bodies using elastic bands, and over the years obviously the elastic bands have perished, and he was left with a load of figures which had, as you can see here, some brown gunge very firmly glued onto the figures, some that he couldn't actually remove, and he was wondering whether I could have a look at these and see if it was actually possible to salvage the figures and get rid of all the gunge that's stuck onto it. As you can see here, this Rebel Hoth guy, it's really quite revolting looking, and this one's quite sticky. The stuff on the Stormtrooper has gone quite sort of brittle, so I'm going to have to try a few little things, because I've never seen this problem before, and see if it's actually fixable. So I think the first thing to do, as is always the case with these figures, is I'm going to give them a good wash using hot soapy water and see what sort of comes off. I'm going to use a toothbrush to sort of really quite vigorously scrub them, and we'll see how they look after that. So let's go ahead and get them all washed up. So if you've watched my previous cleaning video, you'll know the first thing to try is always to wash them in super hot water. And because it's this rubber I want to get off, I'm actually going to use boiled water this time with just a little bit of soap liquid in there, just to sort of loosen everything up. And if you're using boiling water, please be careful. I'm going to use a pair of tongs to sort of move these around and sort of extract them from the water. And I was lucky enough actually with these figures that once I'd started doing this, the glue and sort of rubber actually sort of became quite loose, and on the Stormtrooper I was able to pick it away quite well. Also on the weapons I could just pick it away using the tip of my penknife, and that helped quite a lot. With the Rebel Hoth guy, the rubber had gone very sticky, so I got most of this off using this method as well. The most interesting of these figures though was actually the Death Squad Commander. This had obviously been repainted at some point by, I'd say by a kid, because it was done incredibly badly, and all of the paint rubbed off quite neatly, and so should be able to fix that one as well. And so here we have the figures after the first deep clean. As you can see, the Stormtrooper has actually come up pretty nicely. I managed to just use the tip of my knife to pick away most of the rubber. There's still some in the sort of very hard to get areas in sort of the leg joint there, and a little bit under there. So I'm actually going to carry on. I've got some smaller tools that I can use just to gently pick that away. The Hoth Rebel, as you can see, most of it's come away, but the rubber on this one has gone incredibly sticky. It's really it's awful. You can just see it actually sticking to my fingers here. So I'm going to try a different method. I'm going to get a bit of lighter fluid and a Q-tip, and we'll see if we can get some more of that out on that one. The two weapons for these guys actually have come up the best so far. You can see here the Stormtrooper gun. There's no residue left on that at all, and that was just done with hot water and picking it gently off with a knife. And likewise the Hoth Rebel guy's gun, it's all clean. So that's a sort of a nice sort of start to this process. And as I said, this is probably the most interesting guy. It obviously been repainted at some point, and the hot water really loosened the paint. You can see most of his boot paint has come off, and also all around his face. He had quite a lot of paint sort of really pushed in around his face, so I was able to get most of that out. Still needs a little bit more cleaning there, but that's a good start. So let's try and get the rest of the sticky residue off. We're going to start with the Hoth guy, so let's see what we can do with him. Before I received these figures from the guys at Toy Galaxy, I'd started doing a little bit of research because they'd told me what the problem was, and in my toolbox I'd found a few bits of old computer equipment with a similar problem. Here we have an elastic band that's welded itself to the metal of this PC component, and also I've got an old box cutter that is stuck to the plastic. So I thought I'd do a few little tests first to see what would dissolve this sort of perished rubber. So I tried putting some in, this is brake fluid. As you can see, the stuff is still at the bottom, made no difference. And I also tried putting it in acetone. Quite often acetone does break down the plastic of action figures, so I thought I'd try it on that. And again, you can see it's in the bottom there, it hasn't made any difference. So I'm going to go back to using my favourite way of removing all sort of sticky residue on card and things, which is lighter fluid. As you can see here, you can buy this from most sort of shops and newsagents, but it's a great way of getting rid of sticky residue. So I've got a few Q-tips here. I'm just going to liberally coat these in light fluid and also squirt some on the body. Now this doesn't damage the figures, but should help get rid of this sticky glue. And along with a combination of the lighter fluid, I'm also going to use my knife just to carefully scrape out some of this old rubber there. So there, after a bit more cleaning with a Q-tip, and I'm also just the tip of a knife just to scrape some of the sort of worst bits out. The Stormtrooper is pretty much done. There's a tiny amount in the back of his leg that I just can't get to. It's really awkward, but it's really hard to see that. So overall, all of the sort of sticky bits have gone, and he's looking actually pretty nice now. The Hoth guy, I've got most of it out. It's still a little bit, there's so much sort of fine detail in the front part of his torso there. It's still a little bit in there. So I think I'm just going to give that guy one more wash in very hot soapy water and see if I can get the last bits out. The back, as you can see, is all gone clean. And then the Death Squad commander, well, yeah. This guy's obviously been through the wars. He's a very heavily worn figure, got lots of marks and play marks on him, and pretty much all of his paint is missing, but he's not too bad. So I'm just going to give this guy one more final clean, and then we'll see about repainting this sort of damaged paint on these and getting them back to sort of looking smart and ready for action. So after a second scrub down in some boiling water with a toothbrush, I've actually managed to get most of that out now on the front of the Hoth guy. He's looking pretty good. There's very little bits of it left. It's more like sort of archaeology than anything else. You're just gently picking out the bits of rubber. It doesn't seem to have stuck into the plastic at all. It's just stuck onto the top of it. So that's all gone now. So the next thing to do is to touch up the paintwork and damaged parts of these figures. So I'm going to be using my favourite paints, which are Humbrol acrylic paints, and for the black of the Stormtrooper and the Death Squad commander we're going to be using black number 33. So I'll go ahead and paint this on and get these guys looking good as new. So just use very small amounts of this paint and take your time, as it's always a little bit more fiddly than you would imagine. I haven't actually touched up any of these Hoth rebels before, but looking at the paint, it looks fairly similar colour to the black I'm using here, so I'm just going to use that to quickly touch up some of the paint rubs on his belt. The rest of his paint is actually not too bad, so I'm going to leave that as is, and just touch up the black areas. So we're almost done here. The little insignia on the front of the Death Squad commander, as you can see, wears off over time. This one's sort of about half there. In a previous video I've shown you how to make replacement decals for this. So I've got one of my replacement decal sheets here that I've already printed out onto onto clear glossy vinyl stickers. So I'm just going to cut out one of these replacement ones and stick it on the front of that so that the red bar will be back visible again. So let's go ahead and do that. And there we go, that's the new decal in place. And so here we have the final figures. They're all looking pretty good. Thanks to the guys over at Toy Galaxy for sending me these. It's been a fun job to do. Getting the rubber band off was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. I was expecting it to have damaged the plastic underneath, but as you can see here on the Stormtrooper, it's really just a case of gently prising it off using the tip of a knife. And I've managed to use pretty much all of the tips and tricks that I've shown you in previous videos on these 3 figures to get them looking as good as they are now. Probably the hardest one to get the rubber band stuff off was this guy, just because there's quite a lot of detail in his torso, especially where the rubber was sort of stuck under his belt. But as you can see, that's looking pretty nice now, and it's good enough to go back on display. The sort of hardest one paint-wise is this Death Squad commander. He just had a lot of play where he's actually missing his thumb on one hand, but this is not too bad a figure now, and this will go happily into my Stormtrooper army display that I have going on here at Toy Polloi. So thanks again to the guys at Toy Galaxy. Check out their YouTube channel, as their videos are excellent, and check out some of my other videos for toy fixing tips, because you'll see all of the things I've done in this video I've covered in greater detail in other videos. And hope that's all been of interest, and thanks for watching.